It's a few minutes past 6. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First, next item on the agenda here is approval of the agenda. Ashley, do I understand that, are there any changes to the agenda that you need to make?
So there is going to be one change. We are going to continue with the public hearing and presentations for action item number 1, but we are not going to hold a vote for action item number 1.
Okay. Why is that?
It was brought to our attention that the requirement for having the property be staked for proposed structures, as well as the signage, that's a requirement. The signage is there noticing the public hearing, but the staking for the proposed structures is not there. So in talking with the Director of Planning and Zoning earlier today, she determined that it would be best to just take the vote off of the agenda tonight. We can still, like I said, go forward with the public hearing and the presentation, but because that requirement wasn't met to have the staking of the proposed structures, we would have to postpone the voting.
Okay. I guess when we get to it, I'd like to talk about that some more.
Okay.
I have a question, if I.
Yes.
Is the staking a requirement prior to a public hearing? In other words, if it's part of the advertising that a citizen can go and look and see how it's staked out?
So it is in the zoning ordinance as a requirement. It needs to be staked 15 days prior to the meeting. Not only is it in the zoning ordinance, but it is actually also on the zoning ordinance,
So we can't.
or the ZBA
Well,
application.
So if it wasn't done, how can we hold any sort of public hearing?
So we had talked about renoticing the public hearing again for next month. We can do that as well. We can renotice it.
Well, it's
Or
not a question of a desire on my part. I'm
Sure.
concerned that we're holding a public hearing on something that has not been properly advertised. If the staking is required 15 days before a public hearing, how could we have a presentation as part of a public hearing if the public hearing hasn't been held?
Sure. I'm sorry, I apologize for being late. I'm Alex Steek, I'm actually your township attorney. I'm from Bodman PLC. We can comment on this. I think the conservative approach and the correct read of the ordinance it would be a great idea to renotice this public hearing for next week. However, I understand that the applicant is here, so to the extent that they wanted to share information with you, it is on your agenda. It wouldn't be a public hearing at this point. So, but if you wanted to have an informal conversation with the applicant, because they are here, but there would be, a renotice public hearing for next week.
And they would need to,
Wouldn't they have to present at the public hearing next time? Because what they've done is not,
Yes.
so we'd have to sit through it twice.
Yeah, well, sit through it, engage with the applicant, answer questions, maybe you might have a question that comes up tonight, they could, bring more information next week. More, it's up to you, you don't have to do this, but more information.
and we're talking next month, not next week.
Oh, sorry, next month, thank you.
Correct, okay. Any other suggested changes to the agenda?
I don't have any at this time.
Okay. I guess I'd like a little more discussion about this before we change the agenda, and yes,
Can we table it right at the beginning of the discussion?
can we table
Yeah, would that be okay?
the motion?
I'll make a motion for purposes of discussion.
Okay,
And that
thank
is
you.
to remove this agenda item from the agenda and move it to the next month or the next meeting.
Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second that as long as it's okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Marty?
And the reason I would not second it is I think it does make sense that if the applicant, everybody is ready to already here to give us the information. I get Peter's point that, yeah, we're gonna be doing it next month too. We're gonna hear the same thing and that will be the official public aspect of it. But, yeah, if we have any questions, it'd be better for us to get those out there now. Hey, what about the such and such? And then they can come back next month with that information. I don't think this is gonna be a real lengthy process. I would rather, spend the 15 minutes or whatever it might be tonight and get as smart as we can so that, next month we're even more productive, even though we're gonna be repeating it, like you said.
I agree with what Marty said.
Okay, well, what makes horse races is I don't. I'm trying to figure out, the reason it wasn't staked and marked is because the applicant didn't stake it and mark it as is required by our documents. Is that right?
Yes, it is in the application to do that and in the zoning ordinance.
Right, and so, I'm concerned about having a non-existing, an inappropriate public hearing that hasn't been properly noticed, that when I went out to inspect the property in anticipation of this hearing, there was no marking that you could look at and see where the requested changes were gonna be. And so to me, it seems the efficient thing to do would be to adjourn this for a week to get it, or to a month, sorry, to get it properly marked and then have a proper hearing where we don't tell people, we'll try to pay attention to what you said tonight, but be sure to come back next time.
Yeah, I do not have a vigorous disagreement with what you said, just just to clarify, yeah, we wouldn't actually be having a public hearing on it tonight, we'd be having like an open discussion, but, no, your point is well taken, and I think when we looked at the sites of the two items that are before us tonight, clearly the one that had every corner, it wasn't just four corners, it was every corner staked out, and you could see that that lines up with that, and that lines up with that. It certainly makes a lot more sense to us or any neighbors that are interested, so I was gonna inquire about the lack of staking when we got to this point, but, yeah, I said whatever, it's not a big concern to me either way.
I don't know if it is relevant or not, but when we had Grayson from Carlisle Wortman reach out today, the applicant did indicate that they would still like to present, and even if it is informally, I don't know if that factors into your decision.
I don't like the idea of us hearing from people when the public has not been, and I'm not saying the staking is gonna make any person come or not person, strictly I'm talking about the legal requirements, not whether they're important or unimportant or that it affects anything. I have a concern about us getting information that's really outside a properly advertised public hearing.
I think too, maybe it sets a wrong precedent or something that, we really do need to have people marking the property so we can see what's going on
I mean, I'm a
before they come in,
I'm
so.
by nature a process guy, so maybe I'm too hung up on that, so.
It was properly noticed, but not all of the aspects that make it legit for us to deal with it tonight.
Right, well, you're right.
So we can discuss it, the public is here, the public is watching on live stream, can watch on live stream when it's no longer live. The public is fully engaged, and will have an opportunity next month to be engaged to the extent that they desire.
Okay, well, I think, does anybody else want to comment on this motion? All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and call the question, and the motion was to adjourn item 1 for a month.
Yeah, he said remove it from the agenda, is what he said.
Remove it from the agenda. Could we say table it until next month?
Whatever language.
You should
Okay.
probably add to renotice it as well, directing our planning to renotice
add that in as well. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay. So item 1 is now removed from the agenda and will be heard a month from now once it's properly renoticed and staking is done. Any other changes to the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is approved as amended. Let's move on to approval of the minutes. Do people have suggested changes to the meeting minutes?
I have a few, but I don't need to start if somebody else has some.
You're always the best.
I know.
Well, there is an advantage to going last, because then you can catch what maybe somebody else
Yeah.
didn't. But anyhow, a little thing on page 2 of the minutes, under item E, well, sorry, this one is not little, this one is kind of substantive. The evidence and the narrative at the meeting was that that property was lake residential, not RR rural residential. That was part of what was presented to us. I double-checked just to be sure. And then on the last page, this would be page 404 of the minutes. Under item A, down last paragraph, Straub, I know for a fact that when I said somebody wants to do something, that I said WANTS without an apostrophe.
I knew he was gonna catch that. I have removed your apostrophe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then the only other thing toward the end of that, commercial business on a lakes residential zone property, it's lake residential under the current zoning ordinance. I think it used to be lakes residential. In fact, I'll make that comment a couple of times with the stuff that's before us tonight. It's just,
I mean, there's no S?
there is no longer an S. It is lake residential in the current zoning ordinance. But anyhow, that's all I had.
Did you want me to add that, lakes residential under the current zoning?
No,
I would just
wanna-
take off the S because it is lake residential, and we sometimes have referred to it as lakes residential. We do that in a couple of places in the stuff before us tonight also, but just so we are consistent, current zoning calls it lake residential. My big deal was just get rid of that apostrophe, though. That one really bothered me. So thank you.
Any other suggested changes to the minutes? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve as amended.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved as amended. That brings us on to public comment on non-agenda items. Is there anybody here tonight that wants to talk to us about something that is not actually on our agenda this evening? That doesn't usually happen, but you never know. Item 6, we're on to action items. Item 1 has been tabled till next month. Item 2 is petition 24 ZBA 003. Reamco Design on behalf of Brad and Sarah Schugert. And I think this is one where you have a potential conflict, is that right?
Potential.
Okay. So, given that fact, do you want to announce it, tell us what it is, or do you just want to run out screaming?
I am the the easterly neighbor,
Okay.
so, right.
So based on that, it would appear to me that you have a conflict under our rules, which means that, as I understand it, you cannot participate, you cannot be in the room, you can't give us dirty looks.
I can't be in the room wherein it happened.
Yeah.
Well,
In the
I
room where
think
it happened.
actually, I can take a quick look
Hamilton.
at our, if if I have, I think, ZBA bylaws, planning commission, I think you can be in the room, but you can be in the audience, you know, you'd be in the audience, not sit at
I
the
think
table.
Ashley looked this up for us
So it is,
already.
she's not allowed to be in the room during deliberation or voting.
Golly, do you have a nice place for her at least, not just on the steps out
I'll
there?
go sit in my car.
Well, I guess my
That'll
question
work.
is, Catherine,
That seems harsh.
would you love to be here all the way to the end of this meeting?
Oh, yeah, sure.
You would, okay, well then go off someplace.
I'm gonna go
and
someplace.
We'll come and get you.
Okay. I'm gonna watch it on live stream. Just kidding.
Okay. All right.
For a lot of controversy.
Actually,
You
that's
can
not
look at
bad.
us through the windows, I suppose.
That's a good thing.
Yep,
Thank you.
all right. Anybody else have any conflict of interest or ex parte contact to announce?
No.
Any
No.
issues? No? Okay, hearing none, we can move along to staff presentation.
All right, so we start with, you've got, you know, the variance application form that you see that was filled out and submitted. And then we can move on to the staff report. It is for petition number 24-CBA-003. The applicant is Reamco Design and Build on behalf of the property owners, Brad and Sarah Schugert. The project description is to construct a new single-family home. Current site conditions, it is a vacant lot. They are seeking a request from variance section 7.07, I guess subsection 3, that is titled 25-foot local and private road setback. The address is 14486 Edgewater Drive. It is located in Lake Residential. The existing land use, albeit vacant, has historically been residential. The future land use map also indicates continuing with Lake Residential. It is 8,145 plus square feet in size, 0.187 acres. Surrounding zoning information, Lake Residential. I included a parcel map for you to see, so you can see the orientation of the parcel there on Edgewater. The subject property consists of a vacant lot. The applicant is proposing to construct a new two-story single-family home with attached garage. The proposed two-story single-family home has a footprint of 1,750 square feet. Section 7.073 requires a 25-foot front yard setback. However, there is listed exceptions for certain roads, and I'd like to make the correction that Edgewater constitutes a reduced 20-foot front yard setback, which they're still requesting 18, so there would still need to be a variance, but they actually, the required setback being on Edgewater Drive is 20 feet, not 25 feet.
So they want 2 feet.
Correct. So that, you know, you'll see a couple spots where that's going to be referenced, and just please make note that it's 20 feet required and not 25 feet. I would also like to add, under recognition of nonconformities, that right now, it is non-conforming the size of the lot. It is required to be a minimum of a half acre. It's well below that. I also did some historical digging and was able to find, really the only thing of relevance was the existing home was demolished in early 2019. And then the property owner at the time actually did submit a ZBA, a variance application in early to mid-2019. It was in May, and they were also seeking relief from a front yard setback requirement, but they, for whatever reason, when I read through the minutes, pulled that application at the meeting. So it never got voted on, and then I was not able to find any proof or evidence that it was ever resubmitted. And it's a vacant lot as it stands. So, and then then going forward, there's a variance request letter from the designer and builder, and then it goes into their plans, so.
Very good. Do we have any questions?
Beth does. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm excited.
Yes,
Okay, I have two questions for Ashley.
please.
Ashley, my first question is relatively easy. For the request for the variance, right now it's section 7.073. What number is it with the 20 foot?
It's the same number.
It's the same
It just,
number?
it continues in that same section and subsection.
Okay.
There's more information.
Yeah.
And it lists a list of exceptions that have the 20 feet
Okay.
instead of 25.
So when
that
we
doesn't
make the
change.
motion, that's not going to change? Okay,
Correct.
great. My other question is this. It looks like they had initially requested 18.2, and now we're asking for 18. Did you go back and recalculate? Like, what's the difference there? Why was there a difference?
I rounded to 18.
Okay.
Only because in the past, that's seemed to have been the preference. If 18.2 is more desirable, I'm sure the applicant wouldn't have a problem with declaring that as, you know, what you're approving.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Any other questions for
question.
Ashley?
You said something about the size of the lot that was confusing to me. What's the minimum lot size?
A half acre.
And how
It's-
much is this?
It's serviced by sewer out there, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, otherwise it'd be an acre, I think.
Mhm.
So, and how big is this lot?
.187 acres.
So why do they not need a variance from the lot size requirement if they're building a building on a lot that's too small?
It's my understanding that that would come into play if, for instance, they were requesting to, like, split a lot or do a boundary line adjustment, that it's not, the size of the lot is existing.
This would be a prior legal non-conforming lot, likely under your ordinance. I haven't reviewed that issue, but that's pretty typical in a lot of townships.
Yeah, so I think it would be more of an issue, I think what Ashley is saying is if you were to create a new lot, you couldn't create a lot less than .5 acres there, but it's an existing lot, like Alex is saying, it used to have a dwelling unit on it, it's, may have one again after tonight. The lot, the nonconformity of the lot relative to the current zoning ordinance hasn't changed.
So, you know, the lot's vacant, there's nothing there.
Correct.
You're saying only to create a lot has to be a half acre, not to build on a lot?
Correct. Because this project doesn't have anything to do with, it's not changing the size of the lot. The lot exists as the size that it is, and a single-family home is permitted for any lot that exists in that zoning district. So we have to
All right,
permit.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. You agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't reviewed Dexter specifically on this, but that's very typical. It's a prior legal non-conforming lot. That lot, assuming it was legally split when it was, it exists how it is today from that zoning ordinance. And also, but that's kind of not the issue on, you know, for your guys' review tonight. Also, I'm sure planning has looked at that extensively.
Okay. Any other questions for Ashley?
No.
I think we're ready to hear from the petitioner.
Thank you for hearing our request tonight.
Excuse me, could you make sure the green light is on that little button on the side?
Take this one.
Yeah, I think it's about halfway down.
There we go.
Thank you, now you're recording.
Like anyone wants to hear my voice any louder. Appreciate you hearing our request tonight. I'm glad the meeting's gonna be a little bit shorter for you. So we are requesting.
Excuse me, could you identify yourself?
Oh, yes. My name is Peter Shaw. I'm with Greenfield Design Build. We're here on behalf of Brad and Sarah Shugart, who purchased the lot within the past couple of years here. There was indeed a house previously on the lot. It was a single-story ranch, actually a little bit more footprint on the lot. I would have liked to provide a little bit more information as to how it sat relative to the lot lines, but the prior survey on the lot was actually a bad survey, which we found out during this process and quite honestly wreaked some havoc on planning. As far as we can tell from historic aerials and the previous survey data, the prior house was somewhere between about 3 and 7 feet beyond what was allowed by setbacks. Little hard to tell because the whole survey was cockeyed by a few degrees and off by a few feet. So as far as we can tell, we aren't requesting anything further than what was existing for that prior house. Ideally, the thought process in trying to build something modest on the lot was to comply with the established building line of the adjacent houses, not taking into account the shed to the easterly neighbor, which is actually substantially closer to the road. But if you look at just the principal structures on the adjacent lots, just are looking to go along with that line. If we were to stick with the letter of the law and updating with what Ashley just told us about the setbacks, we might be able to fit a double wide trailer on there, but that's about it. We're seeking those 2 extra feet in hopes to get just a little bit more living space. If we were to request the full lot coverage that zoning would allow, we could actually build a sizably larger footprint. We're just trying to get a little bit more depth to get reasonable living space there. In terms of how it applies to the houses to either side, we could have also built wider, but didn't want to create a canyon effect between the houses or get any closer to be, really to be neighborly to people on both sides. Since it does kind of border on both Line Lake and Halfling Lake, we were trying to be very conscious of what those sight lines were and not encroach in any direction further beyond that. Additionally, just looking at my notes, covered everything. One of the notes as to why it was abandoned previously, they did apply for a variance or found another lot and then realized that they didn't need to go for that variance anyway and they left the house. However, it fell into disrepair. There was actually a blight case open on the house, which is why it was removed. Foundations were a little tough there and it was actually sinking a little bit, which we won't. Are there any questions that I can answer for the members of the board?
Questions for the
This is a slight clarification. I think you just mentioned it, I think it's in the narrative, but on site eyeballing it, so whatever you want to call the front side, back side, kind of doesn't matter in this case, I guess, but the front side does not encroach upon, it looks like it's lined up, straight line from the house adjacent on that side to the house adjacent on that side. Same thing on the opposite side of the house. So you are contained within that.
Correct.
Yeah, it obviously helps to start with a clean sheet of paper, but that is much cleaner than usually comes before us. Yeah, you're not sticking out either way, doesn't affect neighbors' sight lines, doesn't look out of place.
Exactly. And the reason we followed that line of thinking was the reasoning for the water side setback is determined by each adjacent structure. And since they technically have 2 lake frontages, we took the same thing. The other thing I would mention, even though this faces onto what's technically Edgewater Drive, they're the second to last house. The road services one additional house down there, and if you've been out there, the gravel stops somewhere about halfway down their property. So it was really hard to determine before the survey where that road actually sits. So we don't feel that we're encroaching on the drivability of that by requesting this relaxation of the roadside setback.
Any questions? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we're ready for comment from anybody here who would like to address us on this issue. Is there anybody present in the audience that would like to stand up and talk about this? We're just gonna move this right along, aren't we? Okay. I'm ready for deliberations. What do you think?
Well, first of all, comments I said a couple of minutes ago, just to reiterate that, and if we're talking about staking stuff out tonight, it really was helpful to have that kind of detail staked out and to be able to, you know, to visualize that, yep, that's in line and that's in line. This is, like I said, this is one of the cleanest, maybe the cleanest cases that we've had, where everything is gonna kind of fit, look like it, you know, like it's been there. Yeah, I don't have any issues.
Okay.
Well, I don't have any issues with this.
I mean, there is life.
You can argue.
There is life.
You can argue my other issues later.
I guess my only thought is, what is the articulation of the practical difficulty here?
Do you want me to say it?
Yeah, please articulate
My
it.
articulation of the practical difficulty is that we have a tiny, tiny lot that existed before our zoning ordinance was ever applied to it. And these people want to use this lot for residence similar to what other people in the Lake residential zoning district could do, which is to have a single-family detached home of modest size. And because of the size of this lot and the setbacks that got applied to it by our zoning ordinance, they need a variance in order to do it. And the reason they need it is that there's a practical difficulty.
Okay. So I'm gonna ask you another question, Brooke, if you don't mind, if the board does not mind. Normally, and I missed this here, we have an illustration where the setbacks are relative to the home. And so we know it's 2 feet approximately. So I'm surprised you did not say anything about that. But as Marty said, this is probably one of the cleanest settings I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So that is appreciated. So I guess that was my only, I was surprised you didn't mention that. but
Didn't mention, I'm not clear what I failed to mention.
Seeing where the house is relative to the setbacks on the property,
Oh, okay.
normally.
Well, so the house is going to be encroach into the setbacks by 2 feet. And I think
There
we
is
ought-
actually, if you look at the plot plan, the residential plot plan, the hashed kind of rectangle is the building envelope.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So the
Ashley.
building envelope, that defines the setbacks, how they should be. And you can see in the front there, the 2 ends do go over and encroach on that.
They aren't porches?
I don't believe so.
I thought those were porches.
Maybe they are porches.
They are porches.
But covered,
So
I
that,
think, are these all covered, all the porches covered?
yes.
So that's, yeah, so it's still treated the same.
Yeah, so that's just a comment I think I would make in the future, maybe for this designer. It would be helpful to see where the house is relative to the buildable setback. But otherwise, I think that this was a really clean presentation.
Wonderful drawing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts before we apply our criteria?
No.
Okay, let me see if I can find our criteria. That's where I was falling down.
Page 48 of 51, it says.
Do you need mine?
I do
Thank
want to
you,
make,
Ashley, for having all those numbered. That,
oh, you're welcome.
that was especially helpful when I had all this stuff taken apart and then trying to get it back to what goes with what.
I do want to make 2 comments really quickly. One
you.
regarding the decision criteria matrix. Again, if you'll notice on the right, in the column for the footnotes, it's the 20-yard, required setback versus 25. The second being, Brooke, you wanted me to remind you about if the applicant wanted to postpone a vote or not.
Thank you very much. And so since we were unable to get an alternate to be here with us this evening, there are only 4 of us going to be hearing this evening if we proceed to a vote. And in order to get your variance, you have to get 3 yes votes on each one of our 7 criteria. That's a little harder to do if you're shooting at 4 people instead of 5 people to nail those 3 positive votes. So when we have a short panel like we do, at this point, now that you've heard the presentation, you've heard us talk about it, if you wish to adjourn for a month, hopefully, we'll be able to get an alternate who doesn't have a conflict, so that you have 5 people that you could get positive votes from. And so the question for you is, would you like us to vote on the variance request this evening with only 4 of us on the panel, or would you like us to put this off for a month in the hopes of getting one of our alternates to show up?
So maybe just get into or actually describe what the implication of that would be. So if we would not vote majority in the affirmative tonight,
It's, yes.
The
they would
request
have to
would be,
make a substantial change to bring it back to us under a new application, starting the process all over again, right?
correct.
That's correct.
And just for clarity, it's the same number of yes votes either way. It's just, you can only have 1 no vote tonight instead of 2 if it's a
Yeah.
typical 5-panel board. Because the notice or the public hearing was properly noticed and the requirements were all met, we would not have to repeat the public hearing next month if you so chose to postpone it. But it's up to you.
We would like to proceed.
All right, we got some gamblers here. All right, based on that, we're going to move forward and begin with the decision criteria, allowing an 18-foot front yard setback instead of the 20-foot,
20.
I did say, 20-foot setback required. 1, practical difficulty 7.073. The strict application of the terms of this ordinance would constitute a practical difficulty.
Yes.
Beth?
Yes.
Marty?
Yes.
Peter? And I'm saying yes as well for the reason that I enunciated earlier. I think definite practical difficulty on this little lot. 2, physical condition 7.073. The practical difficulty is due to some physical condition peculiar to the property involved. Beth?
Yes.
Yes.
Marty?
Yes.
Peter? And the chair votes yes as well. Again, it's a tiny lot. 3, self-created 7.073. The practical difficulty is not self-created. Beth?
Yes, there's no evidence that the applicant did anything to influence the creation of the size of this lot.
Marty?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes as well. 4, reasonable amount necessary 7.073. Oops, let's make that be 7.074, I'll bet you.
No, it's 707.3 is the ordinance that requires 20 feet. Actually, these criteria come out at 2906.
Oh, they're all 3. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I think it's referring to the ordinance that it's.
Oh, okay. I thought it had it all.
The variance standards are actually 2906.
Okay, okay, thank you. All right, the variant, and then I'm gonna stop reading 7.073 since it's the same on all of these. The variance is the reasonable amount necessary to mitigate the practical difficulty. Beth?
Yes.
Marty?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes as well. Their request is well within the grounds of reasonable. 5, public health, safety, and welfare. Approval of the variance will not be injurious to the public health, safety, and welfare. Beth?
Yes, there's been no evidence presented that it would be injurious to public health, safety, and welfare.
Marty?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes as well. Adjacent properties, approval of the variance will not affect the use of the adjacent properties or the area in a substantially adverse manner. Beth?
Yes, there's been no evidence presented that it would.
Marty?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes as well. 7, intent of the ordinance. Approval of the variance is consistent with the intent and purpose of this ordinance.
Yes.
Marty?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes as well. Got positive votes on all 7 of our criteria, so I would entertain a motion to approve.
I'd be happy to make such a motion. I'd like to make a motion to approve petition number 24 ZBA-003 for the property located at 14486 Edgewater Drive, tax ID number D0406355025 for the requested variance from section 7.073, normally requiring a 20-foot local and private road setback to the requested 18-foot setback, recognizing any nonconformities,
Support.
legal nonconformities, I'm sorry. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right,
And Marty seconded?
Marty seconded. We're ready to vote on it. Beth?
Yes.
Marty?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Congratulations, you have your variance. Be sure to get going on this. It goes away after a period of time. If you don't start on it in a year, I believe, without doing some other things, you can lose it. So don't lose it. Okay? Thank you. You bet. And now,
If you find Kathy out there, you could please
Yeah,
send her back in.
yeah, if you
Yeah.
see her out there anywhere, she's probably just right around the corner.
She's smart, she went home.
All right, and while we're waiting for Kathy, we can take public comment on non-agenda items. Oh, wait, there's nobody here for that. Moving on to concerns of ZBA members, planning and zoning department, and recording secretary. Janice, what are your concerns?
I don't have any this month, thank you.
Whoa.
Excellent, excellent. Ashley, you got any problems?
Nope, I put down, I apologize for not including it in the packet, but I did put down the last month's planning and zoning department report that was distributed, and we'll continue to provide that as long as you guys find it interesting.
Okay,
That is just in general, updates going on. I mentioned to a few of you earlier prior to the meeting that in general, our department has seen a significant increase in workload recently. Makes sense with the time of the year. It's construction and project season. So in addition to that, and in addition to code enforcement complaints, which we also handle, we've just seen a big influx in that. So we're kind of in the process of restructuring how we delegate tasks and who's responsible for what to try to even out the workload a little bit more. We've got the development manuals and single-family new home checklists that are drafts of those will be going to the Board of Trustees this month. They're not anything that is going to be adopted. It's just a summary, basically, of different parts of the zoning ordinance that we're going to use as a resource to provide applicants. So there's a better understanding of everything that's required for a complete application. So hopefully, it's easier for the residents to understand versus just asking them to pour through the zoning ordinance on their own.
very good,
That's great.
very good. Well, now that Catherine's back, we can also find out if there are any concerns of the zoning board of appeals. have a concern?
Minor. As I mentioned, sometimes we get packets that show what the actual setbacks are relative to the project being constructed. And like I said, during the meeting, during the hearing, you know, the last applicant did a great job of, I felt, putting together their packet and staking everything out, and that was really helpful. It is kind of useful, and maybe because the first property wasn't staked out, and we won't go any further into that, I find it very useful to actually see those setbacks on the drawing so that we really can decide, you know, is this reasonable? We don't talk a lot about that when we make our decisions, but it's helpful. I don't know if our booklet requires that. I just know that in the past we've received that and it is helpful. That is it. It's just a comment. Take it for what it is. If there's no requirement for it, then I'm talking into air. So.
Okay. Any other concerns by ZBA members?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
I believe that gets us to the end of our agenda, and therefore, we're adjourned, 10 till 7.
Wow.
Folks, I'm so sorry to interrupt your meeting like that. Hey, Janice, it's just you guys. And we have not met, but I think just, you have resources, you know, the supervisor wanted to let you know. I know, Marty, I've seen you at board meetings before, and I think you probably appeared at planning commission meetings, but I think the intent of me being here is just to see how you all work. Very fresh, short meeting, kept a good schedule and agenda, but we are a resource if you need anything or if questions come up, especially with planning.
Thank
So I think there's gonna be a little bit more interaction moving forward, but not so much. I don't think you'll have an attorney here every time, but just more to let you know that we're here. And I'm, again, sorry for being late and interrupting.
It's okay.
It's okay.
Are we off the air?